So today I'm going to be replacing my motorcycle tires, front and rear. So I've got these in the kitchen right now, actually warming them up so that way they'll be more pliable. It's a little cold in the garage and just make the job easier. But before I get into it, I want to talk about like ways to know when you need to change your tires. So the NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Association, recommends every 5 years at a minimum. Also, you could look for just signs of wear and tear, cupping, just if you can see the metal in that's laced in the rubber, obviously that's a bad sign. So my tires actually on the bike right now don't really show any of that. I can show you guys later, but they are old. So there's always a code on the tires so you can see when they were actually manufactured. Hold on, I think I had it up. So you guys see that right there, that 0120? So this tire was made in the first week of 2020. That's what those 4 digits mean. And this one I saw earlier, it might only be on one side, but where is it? So 5019, so it was made in the 50th week of 2019, so December 2019. Yeah. So then also when you're looking at new tires, there's the dimensions. So this rear tire is a 150-60 by 17 radial. So the 150, that's the width, the 60 is the depth, and the 17 means it fits a 17-inch rim. The front tire is 110-70 by 17. A lot of people talking about going to a 140 on the rear tire for the KTM 390 Duke, but I don't know, I'm just going to stick with stock. And these are the Michelin Road 5 tires, by the way. 2 last things I forgot to mention. So one, we're going to balance the tires as well. And so sometimes, I remember I changed tires with my dad once, and there will be like a yellow dot that will indicate the lightest point on the tire. When you mount that, you want to put that where the valve stem is going to be, because that way it corresponds to the heavier part. So you put the lightest part with the heavier part to make it balance out better. These Michelin tires do not come with that. And then the other thing to notice, as you see right there, it tells you the direction of rotation, so make sure you actually mount it in the way it's going to rotate. Like my Jeep's tires I know were bi-directional, it didn't matter, but I'm not sure if that's a thing with motorcycle tires, so just take note of the rotation direction. My current tires, you can see like I've got more than 30/2 of an inch of tread, which is good, but they were manufactured back in 2014, even though there's a 2016 bike, and they have about 8,500 miles on them, so yeah. So I'm going to do the rear first. So before I jack it up, I'm going to just loosen the axle. So this whole bike's in metric, but this is a big one on the passenger side, or whatever, right side of the bike. I use the 7/8 here to hold it, and then it's a 17 mil here to loosen that axle nut. And then we're going to get a paddock stand, which I have right here for the rear, and I'll lift it up, and then that whole axle should just slide out. So here's the axle. It literally just pulls out once you get the nut off. We've got to remember to grease it when we put it back in. The chain you should be able to just pull off, and the caliper, you see it just slides on right there. So while the tire's still kind of in the wheel well, you can wiggle this off and put it aside, and then the tire comes right out. I've got it on this cardboard because so I don't scratch up the rotor or the sprocket here. So next we're going to air it down by removing the valve stem. So the sprocket and these little rubber pieces just pull right out. I've got this valve core remover tool, which I use to deflate my Jeep's tires from ARB. I can link it in the description. But so we're going to remove the valve core so we can totally deflate it. So we're going to go in and break the bead, go around and kind of push down on it as we go. Having Windex or dish soap or some sort of lubricant that we're going to spray around the outside will definitely help. And so we're going to break the bead on both sides of the tire. It took me a lot of effort to unseat the bead, so a little keywords of advice with this tool. So start like this, like the main method, and as you push it down, if you also squeeze them together, you get a little extra push on the tire. And then after doing that on both sides all around, I went to use the other ends of these, so these ends, and I would have one going in one way, kind of with the curve of the metal, and then the other one going the other way, and kind of pry in opposite directions, and I finally just popped the bead. So now this other little neat thing I have is this just rim protector. We're just going to put that in and do the same method there and get the lip of the tire over this side. You can see I got it off one side. Hold on, maybe get a better picture. So it's off like that, and now I need to do the same thing using the rim shields again, getting off the last bit. You can see I got a little lazy here, didn't use the rim shield, scratched up my rim, so yeah, I would highly recommend. But yeah, you just slowly work your way around. It's not too bad at this point. What did it for me to get it off was going in one from the front and then coming in from the rear and prying it, the tire all the way off. And it's off. Might as well clean it now before I do anything else. It took me way too long to mount this tire on and a lot of pain. So what I ended up doing, using the two original things I had plus this long one, and you gotta either stand or kneel on it and kind of like work your way around slowly. So like you can get in the first part, and you put one of these on either side, and then like kind of hold it down. Well, then you start to like slowly like pry in and move them up, and oh my god! And you can see I scratched the hell out of the rim. That was a nightmare. Anyway, remove the front tire. So before I jacked it up, I loosened it. There was this bolt goes right here. It's a 12 mil, and on the outside you have a 10 millimeter hex. I got my jack right there, works just fine. And then there are these two bolts right here that are, what is this? This is a 5 millimeter hex that are tightening bolts right there. So you don't take them all the way out, just loosen them. And then while this is in part way, you hammer it to push it out the other side, just like that. And then eventually we'll be able to pull it all out. I don't know if you want to call it lazy or smart, but I got the second tire off with the Sawzall and Dremel because it is not easy. So I've got the front tire mounted now. So next thing I'm going to do, I reinserted the valve core, and now I'm just going to air them up, and that should seat the bead on both tires, air them all the way up. So looking back, some recommendations really. Honestly, my main recommendation is don't do it. I've done a lot of jobs, like I've swapped transmissions, I've done everything. This is possibly one of the worst automotive jobs I have ever done. I'm talking 8 hours of just, my back is killing me, just leaning over these tires, struggling with such a simple process, but for so long. It's terrible. If I were to do it again, the only thing I might do is say, like, it's kind of cold today. If I were to do it on a really hot day, the rubber might be a bit more pliable. But yeah, this job just really honestly sucks. Yeah. One other thing I forgot to mention when I was putting the tire on, I should have, so when you're putting on that last bead, the inner bead that's already on, you want to keep it in the deepest part of the rim, like in that V. So maybe like put some wood underneath or something to hold it, to stop it from going like too far and being like up on the upper side of the bead. If it's in the deepest part, that'll give you the best chance of being able to get this on, and that applies to the whole thing. Alright, so it didn't inflate with air, so I'm going to try the starter fluid method. So I remove the valve core again. I'm going to spray starter fluid in the four corners and light it, and then hit it with the hammer. I'll show you guys real quick. So what I ended up having to do was getting a thing called a blaster. It's basically a propane tank, like, you know, like a real big size tank full of compressed air that releases it all at once. And so you get it like right under the lip here, and it makes a really loud whoosh, and all goes in the bead seats. So once that's done, I aired them up. Okay, so I'm making my own wheel balancer basically. So I've got this tire mounted on the axle with no chain, the caliper's off, so it rotates very freely, right? Nothing obstructing it. So now what I'm going to do is I gently rotate it and let it settle out, and the lightest point on the tire should end up at the top. And I've got my wheel weights right here, and then what I'm going to do is just slightly tape them to what I think is that lightest point. Ironically, it's where the valve stem is. And then I'm going to move that point to somewhere 90 degrees from there, so either here or there, and then see if it sinks or if it floats. And so if it sinks, then I added too much weight. If it floats, then I added too little weight, and we'll go from there. I ended up finding with two of these 1/4 ounce weights, it would stay when I moved it to the center. So all I'm going to do now is clear the area, or like clean the area, and then actually stick them on, and then that should be it. And then I'll do the same with the front. So I started putting on the front. So the front, again, I just greased the axle, put that in. I'm going to tighten this to 18 pound-feet. And then I'm going to wait to tighten these, because what I'm going to do is when both tires are back on, I'm going to kind of jounce these forks up and down a little bit to get this seated in the proper space, and then I'll tighten these to 11 pound-feet. Rear wheel's a little trickier to install, just getting everything to line up. I use something to hold under to hold it in place. make sure when you're putting it in that you have, so these things kind of balance. You see there are little notches right here, and the same thing on the other side. You want to make sure those line up. You can adjust this to adjust that. And once you do that, we're going to tighten it to 66 foot-pounds. Before we let it down, I'm gonna turn the bike on and let it run on the stand and spray some chain lube on the chain. Yeah.